In this video, we're going to show how we can use Armitage to attack a remote network. Now, in this particular scenario, what we're going to be doing is we are out here on this external backtrack machine down here. This server right here actually holds a website, and everything on this website is actually published through the firewall. So when we are out on the backtrack machine and we request anything from that IP address right there, it's actually being redirected back up to this website. Because of that, that allows us to attack a website that is on the inside network of the environment. So as long as we're able to find a vulnerability against that inside network or against that website, we then might be able to pivot that machine and use it to attack the other machines on the network. So let's see how that works. I'm going to go ahead and jump into that backtrack machine. And on this machine, I'm going to start up by just running ZenMap. ZenMap is a GUI version for Nmap. And for the target, I'm just going to go ahead and type in the IP address of the firewall. The default profile is an intense scan, and we can see the various Nmap options right here. So this is going to go ahead and do a scan against a local computer. It's going to do OS detection as well as service detection against all the ports that are found open. And there we go. Nmap done. Perfect. We can then see the host along with specific output for the host. Under ports and hosts, we can see there's specific information about the various ports and the services that are running on the machine, as well as topology. In this case, there's only the one host, any kind of details, and a history of scans. That's pretty good. I'm going to cancel that and close anyways. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and run Armitage. Now, Armitage, like ZenMap, is a front-end GUI. ZenMap is a front-end GUI for Nmap, and Armitage is a front-end GUI for Metasploit. So we'll go ahead and wait for Java to start up and connect, at which point we will then be able to start using the system using Metasploit through a web console or through a graphical console. All right, and down here at the bottom, we can actually see the Metasploit console is running, and we can actually type in the Metasploit commands down here. What we want to do is to start off is we want to come up here in the Armitage menu and select hosts and add hosts. Now, in theory, at this point, we only know of one host, which is the external firewall, 216.1.1.1.1, which hosts the IP address. Go ahead and say add and OK. And then I want to go ahead and right click on my host here and say scan. So this is going to do a scan very similar to what ZenMap just did for us. It's going to give us a lot of information back as far as what possible attacks there are on the system. So we'll go ahead and wait for it. It should pop up here shortly saying it's running Microsoft Windows. Maybe. There we go. There we are. So it goes, pops up, says it's Microsoft Windows. If I hover over it, it says Windows right now. In a couple of seconds, it will eventually tell me which operating system it is as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, yeah, let's go ahead and find some attacks. So up under the attacks menu, I'll say find attacks. So this is going to go through and look at all the data it has already gathered about this system, and it's going to see which attacks might be available to it. And of course my ZenMap connection. Sure. So when we ran this previously, when we ran Nmap previously, it told us a lot of information about the system, specifically the type of operating system it was, which was Server 2003, as well as the fact that it was running IIS. Microsoft Internet Information Services has a lot of known vulnerabilities to it. This particular one said that it had WEBDAV as an option. Let's actually open that up. Try to run that one more time. 216.111. Run that. We'll look through the output here in just a second. But it does actually have WEBDAV running on it, and older versions of WEBDAV, in fact, even newer versions of WEBDAV, are not known to be overly strong, which means we can use that as a way to attack the machine. Let's see. Here we see port 21, ports 23, 25, and port 80. There we go. We see we've got an admin as well as a WEBDAV directory. WEBDAV, ripe for attack. All right, so let's go ahead and see if we can attack that. So come back to my Armitage system. I'm just going to right click, attack, and we're going to be looking for IIS and specifically the WEBDAV upload. All right. Let's see if we can do this. For the path, it's coming up to Metasploit. That's not quite the path we want. Because it is in a /WebDAV location, I need to change that. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on that. Let's change, instead of /Metasploit, /WebDAV / and then %rand %.asp. Under targets, let's see, below targets, I want to check for user reverse connection. So once it attacks the machine, I want it to then create a reverse connection back to me so that I can then later attack it. Let's go ahead and launch that attack. We'll see the exploit happening down at the bottom, and it looks like it's working. Interpreter session opened. And there we go. Our logo or our screen has just turned red with lightning bolts, which means we have attacked it. We're now on the machine. Go ahead and right click, Interpreter 1, interact, and Interpreter shell. And we can see down here we now have a shell on this machine, and we can run the command get system to get system level permissions on this computer. All right, so now that we have system level permissions on this computer, now we can use that. Now we can use this machine right here to pivot to the other machines in our environment. Yeah. So one quick attack across the internet, and now we're on the inside network, on the trusted network that is expected to be completely safe. Well, let's go ahead and start off by seeing what kind of devices are out there. Maybe we don't know what they are. So go ahead and right click, and we're going to choose Interpreter 1 and ARP scan. We want it to go ahead and scan the local network. That looks good. And tell us what devices there are. So those second and third machines should be popping up here. While that's going on, let's prepare for attacks. I'm going to choose Armitage to exploit rank. I'm going to move this to poor. Now, poor means it is a poor attack. It's probably not going to be super successful in a lot of environments. In this particular case, that's perfectly fine because we have particularly poor environments. Where's the rest of my machines? But yeah, so we do have particularly poor environments. Therefore, the poor attacks will succeed, and it will actually be a little bit faster than some of the other environments. If my display ever shows up. Let's see. So that is doing an ARP scan. If the ARP table is not filled, they will not be showing up. So let's go ahead and normally these machines are running all kinds of traffic, therefore you don't necessarily have to populate them manually. In this case, it is kind of a quiet environment, so I do have to actually execute a few ping commands. And they should start showing up here. Well, we'll see what comes up. Okay, so now that we've got that, let's go ahead and let's start setting up our pivoting. So while that's going, I'm going to right click on the machine we've already attacked and managed. I'm going to choose Interpreter, Pivoting, and Setup. The setup basically says, hey, anytime you're trying to access this network, 192.168.1.0, send it through this remote host. Don't do it locally, just go straight through that remote host. Essentially sets it up as a router. Now that that's done, if I move this over, we can actually see in our diagram, hey, these other machines are actually connected to, or are accessible through that one. Let's see, auto layout, hierarchy. There we go. So here's our first machine. All the others are accessible through it. Great. Let's see. I think we already did this. Exploit rank, poor. Yeah. What we're going to do, we're going to pick one of these machines and try to scan it. Let's start with 200. Scan. You know, I'm actually going to click these other guys and say scan them as well. Since we're waiting, we might as well wait for all of them at the same time. All right, so through the power of video editing, you didn't have to sit there for the long time that it took to actually scan all those machines. But we see if we hover over some of these, it'll actually tell us, yes, this is running 2008 standard. That one's 2003, and then this one as XP SP2. So let's come up, attacks, find attacks. That will identify what kind of attacks will be available to these various machines. And once it tells me happy hunting, there we go. Now we can go ahead and attack our first machine. So let's attack our 2008. I'm just going to right click, attack. Specifically, I'm going to do an SMB attack. The MS09050 attack. Right there. That's an attack I know works with this particular operating system, so we should be pretty safe to go. Lhost, Lport, that all looks pretty good, so I'm going to leave those as is. I will check the box to say use a reverse connection, so it will actually connect back to me, and then say launch. Now we do have to be careful. If this does not work, it may have actually caused the machine to crash. In this particular case, it did work, but it is not uncommon for that to cause a blue screen attack on the remote machine. At this point, it now tells me, yes, you are running as NT Authority system, which means I have full admin rights on this machine. Well, that was attacking a 2003 machine. Let's go ahead and attack a different one. Let's go ahead and attack... Let's go ahead and attack our .175, the XP Pro. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and right click, attack, SMB. In this case, I'm going to do the MS08067 Net API. Again, another vulnerability I know works well with an XP Pro attack. I see here it's already populated out all of the attack types. Go ahead and choose for reverse and launch. And it very quickly and easily launches an attack against the machine and will attempt to exploit it. This may take a couple of minutes, but when it's done, it should turn red for me as well as give me system level access to the machines. So there you go. With Armitage, it is that easy to 1, identify your target machines, 2, specify what type of attacks you want against them, and then 3, to pivot against those to then be using them as an attack against other internal machines you couldn't previously access.